All right, so welcome to lecture number 6. Just a reminder to watch the short assignment number 3 video. I'm going to be explaining a little bit more about the assignment. But for this lecture, we're going to be talking about logs, measurement and reactivity, single system designs, again, the implementation of them, baselining, and Singwin software. So a log is generally just a client log that's an organized journal. So kind of like behavioral observation, but this is events related to the client's problem, but more specifically broken down by what caused them to have the behavior or feeling or thought, and what were the consequences of that. So some of you may be familiar with cognitive behavioral therapy, and logs are similar to that. So one of the crux of CBT is essentially keeping a log of people's thoughts, behaviors, and the consequences of them. So this can be used in therapy as a really strong therapeutic tool to help somebody to really understand the interplay between their consequences of their thoughts, feelings, emotions, and actions, and the interplay between all of them. So just like a behavioral observation measure, log is a form of self-monitoring. So somebody would be keeping a log of their thoughts, actions. For you, if you're going to be using a log, it might be your study time or the amount of time that you spent in the gym. And you're going to be self-monitoring, and it's a way to have some intervention effect as well. So a single system design isn't necessarily an intervention within itself. Monitoring somebody's problem behaviors isn't necessarily a therapeutic intervention as a standalone. But if somebody's just thinking about how many cigarettes they're smoking per day and really keeping track of it, chances are that's going to have some type of intervention effect of its own, right? Because now somebody's forced to face it, to see what exactly is the extent of their problem behavior, right? And now they can't hide from it anymore because it's in clear, specific terms. Also, the client log provides qualitative versus quantitative data. You might remember some of your previous courses where you've talked about the difference between qualitative and quantitative. So qualitative is rich description. It's telling a story within a specific context, but quantitative is just strictly numbers, as opposed to keeping track of just the number of cigarettes smoked per day. A log might be, I got into an argument with my boss and I went outside and smoked 2 cigarettes back to back because I was so stressed out about it. So as opposed to just saying 2 cigarettes, having a log, you've got this qualitative data of talking about what caused the person to feel stress and what was the consequence, the 2 cigarettes smoked outside. So here's an example of a log, critical incident reporting form. Let's say that it was cigarette smoking. So the time, maybe 12:30, right after they got their performance evaluation, was the incident, and the comment was that I went outside and smoked 2 cigarettes. 5 o'clock, I left work, stressed, caught up in traffic, started to smoke because I was feeling some more anxiety. So again, this is something similar to the behavioral observation log, but you can tell the difference is that this one has a little bit more qualitative, of like this rich description of what's going on. And so here's how you could use it in your graph. So you can see Monday through Saturday, ratings of somebody's self-esteem. So you can see that this is a mixture between quantitative and qualitative, because we've got ratings of self-esteem on the y-axis, which could be something that you created. Maybe it was an individualized rating scale, or maybe it was a standardized measure. But this is built in with that log, right? So Monday, their self-esteem was really, really low. It's at a 10. The report was due at work. Really shook up their self-esteem. But Tuesday, they were up to 60 because I was told that I was doing a great job at work. So Tuesday, my self-esteem was up. And in your graph, you can build in that little comment. So this puts this all in context, right? Because if I took away these comments, then as a clinician, maybe you're just kind of guessing, like, what happened on Tuesday? Was it that they got their paycheck? Or you wouldn't know unless they've got this qualitative data. So Wednesday, it dropped again. Boss complained I was too slow at work today. So what if your meeting with this client was on Wednesday and you saw that their self-esteem dropped? You might think it was just something to do with you, but really it was something about their boss. So that's where logs can be really helpful to put some context and some language to the numbers. So just like individualized rating skills or behavioral observation, logs are a little bit less valid and reliable than standardized measures. But how could you go about maximizing the reliability of a client log? One way is to have a person fill it out consistently on a daily basis. Maybe instead of just having it when there's a critical incident, maybe asking them to fill it out every couple hours. Again, to increase the validity, you would ask them to fill it out right away at that time, as opposed to waiting till the end of the week and then going back and filling out the log, right? Because then it's going to be not as specific and not as accurate. So asking the person to fill it out right away, and again, encouraging them to think this is for their value, right? This is for them and trying to reach their goals. And it's not anything about you judging them. It's nothing about you trying to tell them to stop doing something. It's all about their value that they're getting out of this. And the second question is, how could you verify the validity of the client log? This is where having some of those validating sources or third parties come in, and, whether it be a spouse or a coworker, and having them try to report back to you whether or not their observations match whatever your client's observations are. And that's a great segue into measurement reactivity. Hopefully some of you have been thinking about this the whole time, is how is somebody going to be reacting when I'm giving them a behavioral observation or a standardized measure to fill out? Chances are when you're a clinician, you're going to be working with some pretty sensitive personal data. So how can we think about measurement reactivity, which is essentially a problem or a goal that changes as a result of being observed or measured? Kind of the classic example of this is the Hawthorne effect. So it was a study done at the Hawthorne lighting plant where somebody came in and said, I can increase your productivity by turning the lights up. And sure enough, when they turned the lights up, productivity went up. But researchers said, oh, this isn't really an experiment because we don't have anything to compare that to. So a researcher came in and said, we're going to do 3 different conditions. One condition, we're going to turn the lights up. One condition, we're going to keep the lights the same. And one condition, we're going to turn the lights down. So what would you think would happen when they turn the lights up? Productivity went up, right? But what do you think happened when they kept the lights the same? Productivity went up. And what do you think happened when they turned the lights down? Productivity went up. So what does that make you think? That it's really nothing to do with the lights, right? It's the fact that somebody's watching them. So just by the simple fact of having somebody watching you and researching you, it's going to change their behaviors. So that can be a good thing, because we can certainly use that to benefit somebody by trying to get them to be a little bit more focused on increasing their involvement into their treatment, or to try to decrease some of the negative behaviors. But it can also be a problem in that sometimes people might be not so honest with the way that they're reporting things. So it's something for you to keep in mind, and something for you to address with your clients and make sure that they're not giving you inaccurate results. So a source of measurement reactivity could be that a client adapts a role. Maybe they want to be the good client and show that they're really, really great. I've got no problems. Maybe they're in denial. But it could also be the flip of that. Maybe they're, really, really histrionic or borderline personality disorder, where they might really want to exaggerate how horrible things are. Sometimes people can adopt this really bad role because they want constant attention, or they really want all this negative attention drawn to themselves. All right, so another form of measurement reactivity might be evaluation apprehension. So that's the fear of being judged unfavorably and trying to make yourself look good. So this is a YouTube clip from the movie Precious, where a social worker comes to visit the house, and all of a sudden the mother, Monique, was trying to make herself look really, really good, but minutes before we saw her being verbally abusive and not really too involved. So I won't play it in this video, but there's definitely a link on your slides, so I would encourage you to check that out. All right, so testing effect. This has a lot to do with the frequency of being measured. So if you can think about one of the inherent problems of single system design is that if we're asking somebody to take the same measure over and over and over again, maybe they're not going to be so careful with filling it out every time, or maybe they're just rushing through it and telling you what you want to hear, right? By testing too frequently, sometimes people aren't going to be so careful. So maybe you don't want to do something that's an assessment like a Beck Depression Inventory on a daily basis, but maybe on a once-a-week basis it's going to be something a little bit more intense, like a standardized measure. But you can also just check in with somebody to remind them, are you burnt out with this? Are you tired of doing this? Because if you are, then we need to really remind them of why they're doing it and why it's so important for that person to fill it out accurately. All right, so there's certain characteristics of the observer or the person who's working with the client that might make other forms of measurement reactivity. So if you were to think about this, what do you think would be the difference in how somebody would report a history of sexual abuse to me as a male versus a different professor like Dr. Lisa Berger, if they were working with a female? It's been shown that typically clients are more comfortable expressing certain sensitive topics like sexual history to a female observer, versus if it's something somebody is going to be reporting to me as a male, they might have to have a little bit more rapport built with me. So there's certain characteristics of everybody that might cause somebody to react to them differently. So that's why rapport and the way that you're bringing up sensitive topics to somebody is really, really important to get accurate information. All right, so ways to overcome measurement reactivity are to use valid and reliable measures, use multiple measures. So as opposed to just using one measurement tool, that's why for this project I'm going to ask you to use 2 measurement tools. And again, encouraging the client to be as honest as possible. And if you get a chance to watch Kinsey, there's a movie with Liam Neeson called Kinsey about a social science professor, and I'm going to try to put the clip into a separate video. Just check that out in a separate video that I'll upload to D2L, just a snippet of the movie. All right, and just one last thought about measurement. Try to minimize measurement burden by having a clear rationale for why a client is completing the measure that they're completing. So again, really encouraging it to them that this is for their improvement, this is for their treatment, for their well-being, and not for you to judge them. Because lots of times people don't like to have social workers or counselors putting a magnifying glass to their problems, right? So as opposed to being another person that's going to come in and judge them, you really want to make sure that they understand that this is for their treatment, this is for their betterment. Also, the more objective measures are behavioral observation and standardized measures, because behavioral observations, behaviors occurring are kind of black and white, right? Standardized measures have been researched, but individualized rating scales and logs are a little bit more subjective because it's something that you're creating specifically for a problem that you want to address, and logs are qualitative, so they really only make sense within context. So I'm not saying that they are poor tools for measurement, just to emphasize that standardized measures and behavioral observations are probably going to be the more reliable and valid ones to use.